Would you associate snacking to be a good habit or a bad habit? What are your thoughts on snacking for kids?
Now, what is a snack? Now, a snack is essentially something that is going to get you from one meal to another meal. Keep your energy levels up and get you to that meal. That's it. Right? So, for instance, if you're having breakfast at 9, you're having lunch at 1, and you're having dinner at 9, the time between breakfast and lunch is 4 hours. The time between lunch and dinner is 8 hours.
Correct.
And this is why we are always looking for a snack in the evening.
You have a child, right? What would you make up in an Indian household's plate? So you have the regular poriyal, idli, sambar, sadam, and some protein, say eggs or tofu. It could be anything. How would you make up a plate for a child if it were up to you?
It is up to me every day. I have to make a plate for my son every day, right? So the thing to remember when it comes to kids is,
Hi and welcome back to Kupshup, Keeping Up with Parenting. I am your host Vinodini, a curious learner and somebody who is constantly asking herself, am I doing this right when it comes to raising strong, happy and confident children? Today's episode is something I've been really looking forward to because it's something we deal with on a daily basis in our homes. Food and the stories we tell our children's bodies through the food we feed them and the movement we let them have. Joining me today is someone whose voice has inspired thousands of people to rethink what health and fitness actually means to them. Raj Ganpath. Raj is a strength expert, a nutrition geek, and somebody who has questioned all the myths when it comes to food and fitness. You must have seen his Instagram reels where he questions all the trends and makes sure that everything he puts out there is sensible and easy to follow. In today's conversation, we are unpacking everything from protein for kids to the myth of wheat genetics and how mothers, yes, us parents, are the gatekeepers for the nutrition and a child's mindset when it comes to health. So follow on to join us today. Raj, welcome to Kupshup. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me here.
All right. So we're going to start with, what is one food belief that you had while growing up that you absolutely cringe about now thinking of it? Is there something like that?
Food belief, yeah. I mean, quite a few, but specifically what comes to my mind is about grapes, right? My mom had this, for whatever reason, she had this feeling in her mind that if you eat grapes late at night, you will catch a cold.
Okay.
I think it's probably something she carried, from someone else. Someone passed it on to her. And so when I was younger, I was also a very, not a very fit, healthy kid, right? I would fall sick very quickly, and I was allergic. I had sinusitis. I had asthma. So falling sick was not really fun, right? I would get hit. So every time I had grapes, my mom would always be like, "Don't have grapes at night, because you're going to catch a cold." And that kind of stuck in my head for years. And even after I got into medical devices, I spent, a significant amount of years in medical devices, reading research papers and stuff. But this one thing was in my head. Even once I got into fitness and nutrition, grapes equal cold was just something that was in my head. Much later, I mean, at some point you realize that, wait, hang on, this doesn't make any sense, because to catch a cold, you need a virus, because, it's a viral infection, right? And how come, magically you have grapes and you catch a cold? So that was always in my head. And even now, even after so many years, if I do eat grapes at night, I do eat them, but when I do, the thought is in my head.
That's something, it does come to your head.
Yeah. And then the next morning I'm checking, is my throat feeling a little off? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally get you.
Yeah.
Speaking of mothers and speaking of childhood, right, Raj? In an Indian plate, we have rice, we have rotis, we have dal. Do you think there's anything specific that's missing from a child's plate in India, or a regular and average Indian child's plate?
See, it's an interesting question, right? Because most children's plates are based off of adult plates, but then they are toned down.
Right.
So if you look at an adult's plate, it's carb dominant. Right?
Correct.
If you look at an Indian cuisine in general, I mean, even the words that you used right now, we said rice, roti, basically we named all the carbs.
Correct.
Right? That's just how it is. Our cuisine is built around carbohydrates. And there was a reason for that. We'll get to that maybe later if time permits. But when we are looking at kids' plates, what we're thinking is we're essentially trying to get the kids to eat like adults. That's the goal. We're saying now you're a child, so you're going to eat this, which is basically a simplified, toned down version of what I eat. So essentially, if I'm having rice and sambar, you will probably have rice and parupu, right? Rice and dal, just without the spice.
Right.
If I'm having some kind of vegetables, you will have the same vegetable but without spice, right? So we kind of build their plates with our plates as the eventual goal.
Right.
Because we're thinking when you're 12, 13, 14, whatever age that is, you should be eating like an adult. And eating like an adult is essentially mostly carbohydrates with a little bit of vegetables and other things, right? So there's a lot missing on that plate. Right now, specifically speaking, if you look at the Indian plate, we're missing protein. We know that. Right?
Correct.
Not just that, we're also missing a lot of vegetables. In a traditional Indian household, if you're not really concerned about health or fitness or any of that, or weight loss or any of that, you're mostly eating carbs and fat.
Correct.
It makes up to about 80-90% of what we're eating is from carbs and fat. Now, this was not a problem in the past because we were moving a lot more. We were expending a lot of energy. So we needed energy and we used carbs as their vehicle to get the micronutrients in. That's why we eat roti with sabzi, right? Rice with vegetables, right? So the vegetables are basically, they travel along with the rice. So for kids, the protein part is definitely missing. But the other thing we have going for adults as far as Indian food is concerned, all the spices, all the turmeric, the masala that we use, the different types of vegetables that we do. For kids, we don't do that. It's mostly carrot, beans, peas, right?
Yeah.
So the variety is missing to a certain extent. And the protein is definitely missing. Essentially, when we're thinking about kids, we shouldn't be thinking about how can I get you to eat like me. We should be thinking about how can I get you to eat better than I am eating today.
Correct.
Right? What are the changes that I am struggling with today to make this plate healthier? It shouldn't be a struggle for you. So I'm going to get you used to it right from the get-go.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. So if it were up to you, and you have a child, right? So what would you make up in an Indian household's plate? So you have the regular poriyal, idli, sambar, sadam, and some protein, say eggs or tofu. It could be anything. How would you make up a plate for a child if it were up to you?
It is up to me every day.
Right.
I have to make a plate for my son every day, right? So the thing to remember when it comes to kids is, firstly, taste buds. The number of taste buds a child has is a lot more than adults.
Okay.
So as a child grows, a lot of taste buds are, basically dead. They die.
Interesting.
So, so that's why they are a lot more sensitive to spice and other tastes than we are. Okay. And in fact, as you get older, from here on, I'm saying, the number of taste buds you have, they change. And you have taste buds all over, right? These are receptors for taste. That's why when you eat something like, dark chocolate, you have the aftertaste, which is wonderful, right? You like that. Sometimes you feel the spice in the back, sometimes you feel the spice. So there are, taste buds and receptors at different parts. So for children, this is more sensitive than it is for adults.
Okay.
So a lot of kids, and I'm not saying all kids, a lot of kids struggle to consume complicated food items.
Got it. Okay.
For instance, they may be okay with like a carrot poriyal, but an avial is too much.
Yes.
There's a lot going on there. Too many flavors, too many tastes, too many textures, right? It's hard for them. And that's why you see when kids eat also, if you have rice, poriyal and chips, for example, they would eat the rice first, they would eat the chips next, they eat the poriyal. They would never have this with this with this,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So it's simpler. So for kids, when you're thinking about building plates for kids, I like to simplify. I like to simplify everything, but especially when it comes to kids. And this is what I teach my son, right? Instead of making it too complicated, teach one concept, one simple concept. Anytime you eat a meal, this doesn't apply only to Indian kids. This doesn't apply only to Indian food. Any meal you eat, could be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, any cuisine, inside the house, outside the house, parents' house, wherever it is, make sure your plate has three things: protein, vegetable, starch. That's it. Just make sure there is some form of protein, some form of vegetable, some form of starch.
Okay.
Now, starch is easily available, as you'd see everywhere. There's rice, roti, upma, poha, everything, right? But what we eat. Vegetable also is fairly well, established in the South Indian context and the North Indian context for the most part. There's some kind of sabzi or something of that sort. The protein part is missing, but we don't have to overthink it. It need not be like a really potent form of protein. It need not be like, lean chicken breast. Curd is protein. Milk is protein, of course. It contains protein, right? So my point is, you don't have to look at a food which contains only protein, right? So when you think about, let's say, rice, it is dominated by starch. It is mostly 95% just starch.
Correct.
So it's a source of starch. When you're eating vegetables, it's a source of fiber and micronutrients.
Correct.
You want another food item on the plate, which is a source of protein. Now, if you're a non-vegetarian, of course, eggs, meat, seafood, all that comes in. But if you're a vegetarian, there are still, many options, right? There's different kinds of cheese. There's paneer, there's tofu, there's tempeh, there's soya, right? There's also milk, there's lentils, there's curd, all these things. So the only concept I would recommend that you teach your kids is protein, vegetables, and starch. And I'll tell you why this is important. Firstly, it's a simple concept. It's one thing to remember, not too many things. So basically, the idea is get your kids used to a mental model. When they think of a meal, they should think protein, vegetable, starch. When they see a plate, they should be able to identify what is the protein source, what is the starch source, what is the vegetable source. It's as simple as that, right? And with my son, obviously, it's simple. Like in any plate, I will ask him, what is the protein on this plate? What is the starch on this plate? And they catch on so quickly. And trust me, when they're younger, they're actually learning these things in school.
That's true.
Right? We've forgotten these things.
We've forgotten this. And what you spoke about, right? Making sure that they don't struggle with this. I think that's an important part, because we've learned all of this. In our late 20s, we realize that this isn't the best way to eat your food, and we go back, unlearn. And somehow I feel our Indian households are still doing the same thing. So if we teach them to, figure out food and figure out their relationship with food right from early on, it'll probably make life easier for them.
Absolutely. See, the way to think about that is resetting normal. Right? Like for a lot of us, you take someone who's 50 years old, 60 years old, right? When you go and tell them your diet is flawed, you have to make a big change, it's a lot to accept. Okay? Now, obviously, the 60-year-old or 70-year-old or whatever has lived their entire life wanting to eat well.
Correct.
They've provided good food for their kids and their grandkids. Now, you walk in from somewhere and say all of this is flawed. That's just too much. Because that's not the reality.
Correct.
The thing is that the meal that they created is a solution, right, for a problem that doesn't exist currently.
Correct.
Okay. There was a problem back then where we didn't get enough energy, we didn't get enough nutrients, all of that. So this was a perfect solution for a problem back then. Today, it's not. So now, people are set in their ways.
Right.
And it's very hard to change these things, because now it's not about knowing how much protein you want. Let's say you have to have 70 grams of protein, and let's say, you get it from paneer and tofu and tempeh. Where do I fit that in? It doesn't fit in with my South Indian food. It doesn't, right? So I'm struggling with this. Now I know I should do this. So what happens? Do I just eat paneer on the side randomly just because I get my protein? That's not sustainable. That's not fun. That's not enjoyable. So how do I make this a part of my meal? So what we want to remember is when we are trying to change eating habits, it is a huge change, right? A lot of my students, and I tell them this all the time, when you are trying to make a change at home for your kids, for your parents, please remember that it takes time for people to accept these changes.
Absolutely.
Right? Because think about you. How long did it take you to accept the fact that you have to eat vegetables with every meal? Your parents have been telling you this from the time you're 3 years old, 4 years old, right? It didn't stick. And now some health coach is telling you this, or some book is telling you that, and you walk into your house and you're like, oh, no, this is too carb dominant. It has to be paneer and vegetables and, stuff like that, right? So the change takes time to happen. And do keep in mind that this change is fundamentally going to change the way your family eats for generations.
Absolutely.
Not just for the next 3 months. Right? Because once you make paneer or tofu or whatever as a vegetarian, a repeatable or a staple in your diet, it's not just for you. Now, your kids are watching you eat this way.
Correct.
They are seeing you prioritize protein. So in their heads, a typical meal will be what you are eating today and what you're giving them. Right? What a typical meal is for us in our heads is what our parents provided us with.
Absolutely.
So we are changing something fundamentally, right? And that takes time. And so we need to be patient. So we can't expect these changes to happen overnight, all at once, right? The first change, and like you rightly said, we have to start making these changes for kids, the stuff that we struggle with, right? Like for instance, like you said, protein is hard to include as a part of my everyday diet. For a child is new to this whole thing.
Yeah.
If you introduce protein at a young age, right, and this is the concept of protein, vegetables, and starch.
Yeah.
If the child, or let me use my son as an example, once my son is used to eating a protein in every meal, what happens is slowly, at some point, if there's no protein in a meal, it's going to feel incomplete.
Correct.
He's going to feel like something's missing, right? So the second concept, you teach them is how to balance things out. Let's say in one meal, this is for slightly older kids, say 10, 11, 12, somewhere there, right? If you're eating a meal, ideally, it should have some protein, some vegetable, some starch. Don't worry about the portion sizes. Don't worry about how much protein, calories. Please don't even go there, right? Eat well, but make sure you have all three components. But let's suppose something's missing. Let's say there are no vegetables, okay? So you're just eating, I don't know, bread and eggs, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So remember that you didn't get vegetables. Try to get more of it in the next meal.
It's as simple as that.
It is.
I know, but I think we tend to overcomplicate it a little bit because every meal can't be perfect.
Absolutely.
We just have to make sure that the entire day we've taken everything that we need to.
In fact, let me challenge you there. I don't think a single meal can be perfect. What is perfect? There's no such thing.
That's true.
Right? We are seeking perfection, not knowing what it is. Right? So if you have to create a perfect plate for your kids, what is that? There is no one plate that you can say is perfect for the kid. Right? At the end of the day, food is not just fuel. Right? Food has so many connections with us.
Absolutely.
Right? It can influence us positively, negatively. It's emotional. Right? When we're happy, we eat. Right? When we're sad, we eat. We eat, right? I mean, every emotion. Right? Because it is just hardwired in us to seek pleasure.
Absolutely.
And food is pleasure. So for instance, if there's a birthday party and you ask your kid not to eat cake, that's not a good thing at so many levels.
Yeah.
Right? You might make them a tiny bit healthier, but you're essentially scarring them for life.
Absolutely. That's why you bring in that unhealthy relationship with food where they think cake is bad.
Bad, exactly.
Which it isn't.
It's not, right?
Yeah.
And you bring a great point. You said bad, right? See, a couple of things to keep in mind. One is about food guilt. We have a lot of food guilt.
We do.
And what do? We pass it on to our kids, even without our knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right? We eat a piece of cake and then we're like, oh my God, I should not have done that. I've been this or that. Your kid is listening. Your kid is watching. Similarly, when you're stressed out and you binge eat, and your kid's like, what is going on with this guy? I mean, you're saying this and you're saying that, right?
Yes.
So we're passing this on at some level. They are picking things up, and we know kids catch on. They pick up these little subtle signs of, like how exactly we behave. And sometimes very obviously also we pass it on. And sometimes we don't.
We don't.
Right? So it's very tricky. And that's why I think it is important to break the whole good and bad thing.
So what you're saying is don't brand or label any food item as good versus bad.
Yes.
Or associate either pleasure or guilt with any of the food that we eat.
See, and contrary to popular belief, it is okay to teach kids top-level concepts. Concepts like moderation.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's hard for us to grasp. It'll be hard for them to grasp also, but that doesn't mean you don't teach it them.
Correct.
For instance, cake. Let's use that as an example. Cake is not bad. Cake is not good. Cake is fun, right? Sure, you can eat it, but too much of it is not good for you.
Correct.
So then the question will be, what is too much? Help them understand what too much is, right? You already had, I don't know, something this afternoon. So right now, this is what the right amount is, right? They will learn, right? And that's the thing. Unlike a 3-month nutrition program with your kids, you have years to teach them this.
That's true.
Okay? And I'm just going to deviate and use an example here, right? I like to use this term which says, think like a vegetarian. Okay? Are you a vegetarian by any chance?
No, I'm not.
No. Okay. So I grew up as a vegetarian. Okay. And I am nowhere close to a vegetarian right now, but I grew up as a vegetarian. And my concept of think like a vegetarian is this. If you go to a vegetarian and you ask them to eat meat, would they eat it?
Nope.
No, right? Doesn't matter how hungry they are. Doesn't matter how tired they are. Doesn't matter how pissed off they are. Doesn't matter how tasty or, fried chicken is or appetizing is. They're not going to eat it.
They're not.
But guess what? Did all these vegetarians just pick up a book and learn what is vegetarian, what is not vegetarian?
Nope.
Somehow, they know how to draw the line.
Right.
Right? How did they learn where to draw the line? Family.
Right, at home. Yeah.
Multiple scenarios where a kid may have been like, Dad, can I eat that? No, that's non-vegetarian. We don't eat that. Don't do that. Then another day in someone else's house, can I eat this, right? Is egg okay? Is fish okay? Is chicken okay, right? Slowly, you learn that these foods are vegetarian, and so I can eat them. These foods are non-vegetarian, so they don't even belong in my world, right? So that becomes so clear to every vegetarian that you don't have to give them a book to teach them what is vegetarian, what is non-vegetarian. The line is clear, and so their choices are simple.
Lovely.
Right? Similarly, how can you draw the line for health? What are the foods that I can eat as much as I want, whenever I want? What are the foods that I have to be careful about? Right? So you don't need a health book to teach your kids because you interact with your kids every day. Right? Breakfast, lunch, dinner. Right. Every time, if you can impart a little bit of knowledge, good knowledge, right? Letting them know what is okay, what's not okay, moderation, protein, vegetable, starch. What happens is like a vegetarian, how they learned what is okay and what's not okay, your children will learn. Because let me tell you this, and I strongly believe in this. As parents, I honestly feel the only tool, the only weapon we have is reason.
That's true. Absolutely. Especially with children of our generation.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we have because they question everything.
Yes, and they should.
They should, absolutely.
Right? Thank God they do, right? Why are we not doing that? Why are we not asking why? Why are we okay with, I don't know, barapa being a protein-rich meal right now? Or when someone says, you eat this and that'll happen, or microwave will cause cancer. Why are we not asking why,
No, we're
right?
not questioning it
Yes.
as much as we should.
Yes, and the kids question it, right?
Right.
So the point is that when we are thinking about kids, they are really smart.
Yeah.
And we need to basically equip them with reasoning, right? And if we can do that, see, again, the thing is, for the first 10, 12 years, maybe you have, a lot of control over what your kids eat, right? Gradually, as they grow, once they go to college and stuff, you have absolutely no control. But if you've taught them reason, if you've taught them how to reason, if you've taught them the basic concepts, protein, vegetables, and starch, wherever they are eating, it could be at a college cafeteria, it could be somewhere outside India, wherever, they will have these concepts that will guide them in the right direction. Because at the end of the day, the choice is going to be theirs.
Correct.
Today, the choice is ours.
But that's for a very few years, right?
The
4
choice
to
being
10
ours.
years.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So in the long term, the choice is going to be the child. So you need to teach them how to make the right choices,
Right.
not force them or not shame them into eating certain kinds of food and not eating certain kinds of food, right? And this is a long game. Right? You can't like say, I've already told you this, why do you not get it? No, this is like, saying please and thank you. We go up, we keep telling them that over and over again. Say sorry, say please, say thank you. You can't expect them to learn it the first time, right? So these are concepts, because currently at a certain age, they're if you think about their brains are not fully formed, right? Up until about 17 or 18.
No, they're not.
Right.
Yeah.
So their neural pathways are not what, they need to be yet. So at certain connections don't happen. It doesn't matter how many times you say it, it just doesn't dawn on them as well. But concepts, if you can teach them how to reason with themselves, they will be able to do it. Of course, there will be a certain age where they will fight with themselves because of temptations and stuff. But knowledge, reasoning, concepts will guide them in the long term. And as parents, I'm sure you'll agree, our job is not to, force them to eat certain things. Our job is to make sure they are able to take care of themselves later on in life.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely, equipping them. I actually had a question for you, which I'm not going to ask, but my question to you was, what is one food you take out of any Indian household's dabba? But you've really changed my perspective when it comes to food and how do we associate guilt or pleasure with it. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you
I'd still
so
like to
much.
answer that question.
Yes, please, go ahead.
There's no food, right, to take out of any, like I said, right, any food is okay. But the thing to keep in mind, though, is why are you eating it? Right? Sometimes what happens is it becomes a compulsion to eat something.
Yeah.
Right? Even when the child doesn't want it. Right? You'll see a relative or a family member come in giving them a sweet. And the child's like, no, I don't want it. And the family is like, no, you eat this, you have to eat this, right? So if there's something that we can remove, I would try and remove the forcing. Whatever it is. Don't force children, to do whatever it is, right? If a child doesn't like spinach, you forcing them is only going to make them dislike it more. Remember, their taste buds will change. As they grow up, they will get to a point where they actually love spinach. So there is a lot of time. So if we can be neutral about the types of foods, but if we can be a little more kind, about what we are asking them to do, I think that will go a long way. They will understand where we're coming from.
Having said that, Raj, what are your thoughts about asking a child, as children are especially put through this, right? Finish what's on your plate. What are your thoughts on that topic?
I have some strong thoughts on that topic.
Okay.
It's a good thought, sure, but it's from the past. Okay? The statement is not usually finish what is on your plate. There's another line that follows that, right? There's like, do you know how many children are starving? Do you know how many children don't have food,
true.
right? Somehow, me overeating is going to feed them. Right? So that's the problem, right? I mean, I think it was something that was used as something to, create empathy. There are a lot of kids who don't have food. You have to be lucky for what you have, so don't waste food.
For what we have.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. But this is also something, a thought, right? A mindset from the past when food scarcity was common.
Right.
Today, we live in an age of abundance. Most people have too much food, and it's sad and interesting at the same time because we are all overfed but undernourished.
Correct.
Okay, that's what's happening.
No, I tend to agree with you, yeah.
We tend to consume a lot of energy, calories, without consuming enough nutrients. So finish your plate is not serving us well anymore. So for a kid, if the kid is old enough to make their own plate. My recommendation would be, if the child is not able to finish, pack it up, you have leftovers, eat it again tomorrow or day after, right? Firstly, leftovers are not bad. The whole thing about, you should eat only fresh food, leftovers are not good for you, again, is a thing from the past, because this was from a time when we did not have food storage figured out. Refrigerators didn't exist.
Right.
So food would go bad. And also remember, back then, if food went bad and you felt sick, it wasn't as simple as popping a Digene in and you were okay.
Yeah.
It was quite complicated, right? Healthcare was not what it is today. So it made sense to always make sure your food was fresh. Again, a solution for a problem that existed then but does not exist now.
Right.
Today, leftovers are absolutely fine. Things can live in your fridge, stay in your fridge for 2, 3, 4 days, right? Because of the temperatures that, we're controlling them in. Right? So firstly, if they're not able to finish it, save it, have them eat it later. If it's not something that you can save, please toss it out. And then let the child understand next time, don't take as much food to start with, right? Use that as,
a learning moment.
Exactly, right? It's a teaching moment for the parent, right? Tell them that, okay, this is how you do it. So next time you take less food. If you want more, you can always take more. So I think that is a better way to solve the problem, as opposed to saying you have to finish your plate. And I'll tell you why this is very important, because we grew up with this whole finish your plate thing, okay? And today, we're not eating how much we need, we are eating how much is served.
Right.
And this happens every single time. Let me give you an example. When you go to a restaurant, let's say you go to Sangeeta and you order a ghee puri dosa. It's one ghee puri dosa and you have a coffee and you're happy, okay? Let's say, you're going, I'm going, and let's say me and Surya are going, all right? Now, Surya is a big guy, strong guy, right? I'm not a big guy. How come that one dosa is enough for him and for me? Both of us tend to order one dish and we finish it.
Right.
It's not because I needed all of that dosa. I don't want to waste it, so I'm finishing it. So whatever's in front of us, we tend to finish it.
Yeah.
Right? And this actually is very dangerous, because when we're out in social gatherings or whatever it is, we don't even think about how much we're eating. If it's there on the plate, we finish it.
We are conditioned to do that. And if there's food available in a buffet or just right in front of us, then we tend to keep serving ourselves. And what an unhealthy cycle that can be.
Exactly. And that's because we're not listening to our bodies anymore, right? Satiety is essentially something we need to be aware of, right? How much are you eating? You have to eat above satiety, below satiety, right? But we're not paying attention to that. We're paying attention to how much is left on my plate. Am I going to finish this or not, right? And here's a funny story. So I did my master's in New Jersey, and then I got a job and moved to California. Okay, so as long as I was in New Jersey, I was a student, so there's no real money there. So you're just eating whatever, right?
Absolutely.
And you're skinny as it is, the student life, right? Then I moved to California and I got a job. So now you have money coming in, right? So we went to restaurants and stuff, and any place in California I'd go to, food would be so much, so much.
Portion sizes.
Portions are huge in America, right? I wouldn't be able to eat more than half.
Yeah.
So I would eat half and I would take the rest back home and do whatever. But I kid you not, in 2 months, even without my knowledge, I got to a point where I could finish the entire plate with no problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you're not thinking, right? Like, this is all I'm able to eat, I'll take it back. This was a time when I wasn't into fitness or health or anything. I was just, normally eating. And then slowly you realize you can eat a little more, your stomach expands, your capacity improves, and you improve your capacity to a point where you're able to finish a plate. Because only then it feels like a meal is complete.
Right.
And I was overeating in every single meal, right? Without my own knowledge, right? So it's these little things that are meant to guide us in the right direction previously are unfortunately misguiding us in the wrong direction.
I can totally relate this to, a mom putting extra food on her child's plate and then the child's capacity improving, but is it really improvement?
Yep. Yeah, you're just teaching the child to not listen to their body, but to finish the plate, right? Because when a child says enough, it is important for us to understand, okay, is this child saying this because the child is lazy to eat, or the child is, done? And it's okay for a child to be hungry for a little bit, right? If a child undereats in a meal and the child is hungry in a couple of hours, you learn too. As parents, we're learning all the time, right? So I think it's important to structure the plate well. Obviously, if you have enough protein and vegetables, the food is more satiating than having just a carb-based meal. Yeah, so little concepts, not forcing kids to eat certain foods or eat certain amount of foods, I think gives them the autonomy necessary, right? And the power that's necessary to control their own things, right? At the end of the day, we want them to learn how to take control of their health.
Absolutely.
We're not always going to be there for them.
No, I agree.
And needless to say, our knowledge, and let me say this very clearly, our knowledge about nutrition is flawed in the first place. So when we tell them, I know what's best for you, do we really know what's best for them? We are confused ourselves.
true.
Right? So we are learning ourselves. We are looking up to, nutrition coaches and nutrition textbooks and influencers and all that to understand what good nutrition is. Right? So it's important that, we stay a little more humble, grounded, understand that, okay, maybe I can learn something from this also.
Okay, so speaking of food and what satiating food is, let's talk about snacks a little bit.
Okay.
Would you associate snacking to be a good habit or a bad habit? Or what does it depend on really? What are your thoughts on snacking for kids?
So, see, snacking is a very corporate thing. Okay, it was kind of thrust upon us. Snack foods, essentially, right? If you think about all the snack foods that are out there right now, it's usually biscuits and samosas and chips
whatever.
and stuff like that. It need not be that way. See, technically, when you think about meals and snacks, these concepts are all very man-made in the sense that the first meal of the day is breakfast. You have to eat these kind of foods. Lunch, I mean, it should be a dosa or a roti or idli or whatever. Lunch has to be rice, and we don't have to really adhere to those norms. Right? At the end of the day, we are trying to fuel ourselves in a way that makes sense to us. Okay? Now, what is a snack? Now, a snack is essentially something that is going to get you from one meal to another meal, keep your energy levels up and get you through that meal. That's it. Right? So, for instance, if you're having breakfast at 9, you're having lunch at 1, and you're having dinner at 9, the time between breakfast and lunch is 4 hours. The time between lunch and dinner is 8 hours.
Correct.
And this is why we are always looking for a snack in the evening. So that's the problem. Firstly, we need to space out our meals well. So, see, 3 meals a day is sufficient for most people, especially when you're not doing any crazy physical labor. For kids, on the other hand, they do need more meals for 2 reasons. One is they probably can't eat everything they need in one meal. It's hard for them to, consume that much, food. And they are extremely active. They move around a lot. So giving them a snack is not a bad idea at all. Right? So whether you want to give them a morning snack and an evening snack or just one snack, there's no rule there. It changes based on the child. Like take my son, for instance. He's in 2nd grade right now. Me and my wife would always talk about this. Like, why are we even sending him a snack? Because he never eats a snack. Never eats a snack. Doesn't matter what you give him, he would never eat a snack. So initially, when we started sending him to school, I would make these little pancakes and all that, like nicely shaped ones. It'll all just come back. I'm like, he's not even eating the snack. Then I realized, see, my son, every morning, he has 2 eggs, oats, milk, and maybe a fruit or whatever, right? So that's a significant meal. So he's not hungry for a snack. So he doesn't have to eat a snack simply because it is snack time.
Got it.
Okay? He's fine. So that's what I tell the teachers also. It's okay. He eats a good meal. If he's not eating a good meal, if he's hungry and not eating a snack, that's a problem. But he's not hungry, he's good. Similarly, in the evenings, because the distance between lunch and dinner is a little longer, a snack helps. But here's the thing we need to keep in mind. Snack foods, as they are marketed, they're basically junk foods.
Absolutely.
That's the problem. Snacking is not the problem. Snacking using quote unquote, snack foods is the problem. So if your kids snack in the evening, in my opinion, simply should be another tiny meal.
Right.
What you're eating for dinner, if you're eating, I don't know, say 3 chapatis and a sabzi, snack can be 1 chapati and whatever is left over from lunch, or a fruit and cheese, right, or a glass of milk and fruit, or something of that sort, right? So I don't think the number of meals matter. Some kids are happy with 3 meals, some kids like 4 or 5 meals. That's absolutely fine. We have to provide them with enough energy and enough nutrients because they are growing every single day, right? That is necessary. But you can't use that as an excuse to make it convenient for yourself and give them the snack foods, because it's so much easier to just open a box of chips and say, there you go, eat this.
Yeah.
Right? And it's easier to convince them to eat chips or biscuits than it is to convince them to eat fruit and cheese or milk. Right? So we are taking the path of least resistance. What is easily available, what is easily consumable. So, my job is done kind of thing. And then the same thing applies for breakfast. Just so you know, in the US, in India, we don't have it much, but in a lot of Western countries, cereal is a big part of breakfast. Why? It's not because it's healthier. It's because 3 reasons. 1, it is damn cheap.
Yeah.
Number 2, it is extremely convenient, right? It never goes bad. You just pop it out of a box, pour milk and give it. And number 3, it's tasty, so kids don't say no. And why is it tasty? Because it is no different from dessert.
Correct.
It's sugar. It's all
It's
sugar.
loaded with sugar.
Yeah.
It's loaded with color.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But all that is present on the back of the box. What does it say on the front of the box? Even Choco says it is rich in vitamin D. Unless you're packaging sunlight into that box, really, you're not really going to make it rich in vitamin D. Right? And I think it was Chocos in India which said you get the same amount of whatever from 3 rotis or whatever. So comparing Chocos to rotis, so parents who are already desperate to find a solution are thinking, hey, you know what? This is great. This has vitamin D. It's like a roti and my kid loves it, so I'm going to do this.
It also has a lot of sugar, a lot of preservatives, some color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that we can conveniently forget.
Forget,
right?
ignore.
Yeah.
No,
Because
that's true.
we mean to do the best for our children naturally. But it's not easy because it takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, to get kids to eat the right things. Right? Even after all these concepts that I spoke to you about, I asked my son a couple of weeks ago, so if you could eat whatever you want in a day, what would you eat? He said, for breakfast, Appa, I will have French fries and a chocolate cake. For lunch, I will have pasta and fried rice. And for dinner, I will have pizza and this. So
That sounds like my favorite day if he's ever doing that.
right,
Yeah.
so the thing is that, kids understand that, certain things are tasty. Like, for example,
Yeah.
a cake is much tastier than carrots. They know that, right? But at some level, it is honest to make them understand that, hey, you know what? It's also fun to stay home and watch TV instead of going to school.
Correct.
But you're going to have to go to school.
Correct.
And then when you have time, you do this. Similarly, cake is not bad for you. Cake is fun, like watching cartoons.
Correct.
But you need carrots and you need cakes. Right? You're going to have to balance them out. They will struggle with the balance. They'll do more of this, less of that. That's where we step in.
Absolutely. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. See, speaking of packaged food, millets. Millets are everywhere now. It started as a diet fad a couple of years ago, and people started getting on millets. So millets became substitutes for rice. Now millets are in rotis, and now millets have slowly crept into the snacking space as well, where everything seems to be, you search for healthy snacks on Swiggy or Zomato or whatever, all you find are things made out of millets. What is your take on that? Are millets as magical as they claim for them to be? Or is it another marketing gimmick that we're falling for?
Everything is a marketing gimmick, right? But see, here's my problem with millet-based snacks. The one good thing about snacks were they were delicious. These things are not even that anymore.
That's true.
Right?
It's taken
So
away.
you're like, you know what? Eat these snacks. They're not tasty, but they still have sugar.
That's a little worrying.
It is, right? They have lesser sugar, sure. They have lesser, a lot of these, brands which mean well don't add preservatives and colors and things like that. See, but my concept is quite simple, right? If you're eating junk food, eat it because you want to have fun. If you want to eat good food, eat just proper good food. So if you're trying to get nutrients out of food, eat proper food. Vegetables, protein, starch. If you want to get joy out of food, like just fun, sweetness and stuff, then go have the junk. Right? So don't try to, just blur the lines between the two and say, you know what, I'm going to make a version which is healthy and fun. So I'm going to overdo this.
So you don't get the best of either worlds.
You
right?
don't, right? Because see, think about a millet-based biscuit.
Yeah.
Right? It's millet-based.
Tastes like cardboard.
But it's still a biscuit. A biscuit is what? Sugar, butter, flour.
Yeah.
You cannot make it without sugar, butter, and flour. If you remove the sugar, it doesn't taste good. Right? You essentially replace the flour with millets, but it's still a biscuit. So I'm saying if you want to eat a biscuit, don't consider a biscuit as food. Consider it as a fun meal or a fun snack, and then eat a biscuit that you really like.
Yeah.
Right? And here's the thing. When you think about biscuits also, there's the whole Mari biscuit, and then there is an Oreo cookie. Right? And then there is, say, a millet-based biscuit. When you place these things, automatically in your head, you're thinking, Oreo, delicious, amazing, but that's the worst for health. Mari biscuit, not so great, but it's okay for health, right? It's not so delicious, not so bad either. Millet-based biscuit is probably the best of the three. But if you look at the, just the energy values of it, 100 grams of all these biscuits have the same amount of calories.
Oh, really?
Because they are all sugar, butter, and flour.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
1 gram of sugar, which is carbohydrates, has 4 calories. 1 gram of butter has 9 calories. 1 gram of flour has 4 calories, right? So it is just how you mix them. Some are fattier, some are not. 100 grams of any biscuit will be anywhere from 500 to 550 calories. There's no difference between the two. The amount of sugar, the amount of fat, amount of flour changes.
How we are conditioned to not think like that, right?
Yeah. That's because it is tastier. It has more sugar, yes, but at the end of the day, they're all kind of the same. They're all biscuits.
Yeah.
Same thing with chocolate. right? You're eating, let's say the whole truth chocolate, which is made out of dates, cocoa, and that's it, I guess, right? Just these 2 ingredients. And then you have another chocolate which is made with like 30 ingredients. Of course, the preservatives and all that is not there in this one, but this is still a chocolate. You're using dates, but you're using dates as a sweetener.
Right.
And dates, if something is sweet, it has sugar, right? So at the end of the day, if you're thinking about millets, if you want to use it as a substitute for rice or whatever, sure. But it is not magical by any means. You can eat white rice, vegetables, and protein and get everything that you need as far as health is concerned. You don't have to force yourself to start eating a different kind of food.
Interesting. Very interesting. Because this is changing the way I think about food and I approach food, right? And it's almost like what you're doing is okay, just do it in moderation and
Absolutely.
make sure.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Because what you said is, see, if I asked you what you're eating for a traditional meal, you will say, I'm eating rice, I'm eating vegetables, I'm eating curd. I'm like, great, do the same thing. More vegetables, less rice, more curd. As opposed to a lot of rice, a tiny bit of it. Just change the proportions.
Yeah.
The South Indian diet, the Indian diet in general, is actually wonderful to create such meals. We just don't, we don't put in the effort to change the proportions.
Because trying to follow another cuisine or somebody else's diet where we're like working on stir fries and whatever, that's not sustainable. How long can I do it? Whether it's for a child or whether it's for me, I'm not going to be able to do it or sustain doing that for a longer time.
I mean, we are becoming more global, as we say. We are eating more different cuisine foods more often than we did before.
Yeah.
And it's going to change more and more, and that's great. But that's the point, right? Don't think about it as cuisines. Just think about it as, if you're looking at it as protein, vegetables, and starch, it doesn't matter which cuisine. If you're eating Mexican food, you can still have rice, beans, and veggies.
Yeah.
Right? If you're having South Indian food, you have rice, parpu, and veggies. Right? If you're having North Indian food, you have roti, dal, and sabzi. It's all the same, right? But they're just different things in different cuisines.
Yeah.
So if you can understand the fundamentals and if you can teach that to the kid, you're equipping this kid wherever you go in the world, whichever restaurant you go to, you can make a better choice. There is no perfect choice.
No, I think that's true, right? It's getting down to the basics and really understanding what each of those food items are that we put on our plate. Now, talking about rice, protein, and starch, right? What do you think are top protein choices for our children? Because I think that's where the struggle is for most mothers as well. We were earlier told that dal is a wonderful source of protein. Then we were told that dal is not a wonderful source of protein. So what is a good source of protein for vegetarians and non-vegetarians? Can you talk a little bit about that?
So first thing to keep in mind is when you're talking about protein, you want to think about accumulating protein in every bite. Okay? So a non-vegetarian, for example, can eat rice and chicken. Rice is all carbs. Chicken is, let's say chicken breast is all protein. But this is an extreme case. Food doesn't work like that, right? When you are making, let's say, sambar sadam with some poriyal and kootu, the poriyal, which has vegetables, also has protein. The kootu has some lentils, also has protein, right? The sambar also has protein. Little bit of everything contributes. So you don't have to think about it as protein sources. But if you're thinking about proper sources of protein, it's the same for kids and adults. The top source, that is the sources which are most efficient. What I mean by efficient here is, see, every food that you eat, very rarely will you get only one macronutrient from a food.
Okay.
Very rarely. Like rice, for example, has 99% just carbs, okay? And chicken breast has 100% just protein, okay? Which is very rare. But if you think about an egg, it has protein, it has a lot of fat too. Take milk. It has carbs, it has fat, it has protein. You will get foods that are mixed up because that's just how nature is. Right? In nature, any natural food has to contain these different macronutrients for them to do whatever it is that they have to do. So when you're looking at protein sources, efficiency is important. That is, if you are getting 10 grams of protein from a particular food, 10 is a random number. If you're getting 10 grams of protein, what else are you getting along with it? Okay. Now let's take chicken breast and let's take lentils or dal, and let's take white rice. All three of these foods contain protein. Okay? They contain protein.
Okay.
Now, chicken, if you look at it, if you're getting 10 grams of protein from chicken, you are getting 10 grams of protein from chicken, nothing else. Okay? If you're getting 10 grams of protein from lentils, you will also get 30 grams of carbs along with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the ratio of protein to carb in lentils is anywhere from 1 to 2.5 to 1 to 5, depending on the type of lentils.
Okay.
So if you have to get 10 grams from lentils, you will be getting 30 other grams of protein, which means the total amount of calories you're getting from lentils will be about 160 compared to chicken, which is just going to be 40. Let's go to rice. If you want to get 10 grams of protein from rice, you will have to get close to 450 grams of carbs from it.
Oh, wow.
Because rice is
Yeah, it's
not a
only-
source of protein, right? For every 40 to 45 grams of carbs, you get 1 gram of protein. So the idea is you have to pick efficient protein sources so you don't end up over-consuming calories through carbs or fat or whatever, right? Now take eggs. Eggs is always like a great source of protein, but in reality it's not. See, one egg is roughly about 70 calories, but it contains only 6 grams of protein, okay? So 6 grams of protein adds up to 24 calories. So where do the remaining 45 calories come from? Fat.
Oh,
Because
really?
eggs have protein and fat. The yolk is basically all fat. The white is, protein.
Protein, okay.
So every food will have a mixture of this, right? Milk, 1 cup of milk will provide you with about 8 grams of protein. But it also provides you with 8 grams of fat and 12 grams of carbs.
Oh, wow.
Because every food is mixed like this, right? And at some point it was a good thing that I'm not only getting protein, I'm also getting carbs, I'm also getting, fat. Today we are so concerned about the calories that we are confused about what it is. So if you're thinking about proteins, you want to think about the most efficient source of proteins. And if I can list it out in order of efficiency, meat, seafood will be right at the top.
Okay.
Because meat and seafood essentially has no carbs. There may be lean versions of meat and seafood and fatty versions of meat and seafood, right? So you get like, say, chicken breast or let's say a very lean cut of beef, that's going to be mostly protein. But if you're looking at a fatty cut of beef, what they use for a burger and stuff like that, or pork loin or something like that, that would be high in fat, right? After meat, you would potentially have eggs.
Okay.
And you will have cheese. Now, if you think about cheese, it's any kind of cheese, halloumi, paneer, cheddar, whatever it is. All these cheeses will have a certain amount of protein, but they will contain a lot of fat because cheese is, fatty.
Yeah.
After that will be lentils. After that will be milk and curd, right? So a simple way to, understand the efficiency of protein is this. There's a small formula that you can use. You take a food item, you look at the total number of grams of protein in it. Okay, and then you multiply that by 4. So you will get the total number of calories from protein.
Okay.
And then you see the total number of calories in that food item. You divide the calories from protein by the total amount of calories. That will give you the percentage of protein. Okay, so chicken breast, for example, is 100% protein.
Got it.
Eggs contain about 20 to 25% protein. Lentils have about 20% protein. Milk has about 20% protein. Right? Cheese has probably about 25 to 35% protein, right? So you want to figure it out based on that. But we don't have to count protein too much. As long as we include one of these protein sources in all our meals, we will accumulate enough protein. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely does. So you don't have to look at isolating a specific item and saying, hey, this is protein. But I think if you have an understanding of food like what you've just mentioned, I think that's sufficient for us to make a plate.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
healthy enough.
So just think about it, right? I mean, what is a traditional South Indian lunch? There'll be like sambar, sadam, and poriyal.
Parippu, rasam, poriyal, and
Okay.
tair.
Sadam, parippu, rasam, poriyal, tair. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Now these are your ingredients. How do you proportion these in such a way that it becomes a balanced plate? Usually there's a lot of rice, some parippu, some rasam, a little bit of poriyal, and tair sadam again.
Yeah.
Right. Instead, look at it differently. Reduce the rice a little bit. Increase the parippu. Right?
Yeah.
So you get some more protein from there. Have a bunch of poriyal, and that means to have a lot of poriyal, you have to make it quote unquote less flavorful. A lot of our sabzis are so intense because they are meant to be consumed with a lot of starch.
Yeah.
Right? Like a kurma, for example, right? Or like a mutton sukha or whatever. No one expects you to eat it just by itself. If you do, you're going to get acidity because there's so much spice in there. But if you can tone it down, you can eat more of that and less of the starch, right? And the curd, instead of making it a tair sadam, can you have it in a bowl?
Yeah.
So it's the same foods that you're eating, just in different proportions. It feels weird because we're not used to eating that way. But once you do, like we spoke about at the start, you're resetting what normal is. Right? Like, I think salads are a great example here. When we first started eating salads, we were like, salad, who eats salads? It's diet food, it's boring food. But I'm sure, after you've eaten it for a few years, you start looking forward to a salad.
Yeah.
It's refreshing, it's crunchy,
fresh,
right? All of that. But someone who's never eaten a salad is not going to feel the same way, right? So we say get used to things. This is what that is.
No, and speaking of salads, right, I'd rather think that getting used to this type of a plate is a lot easier than getting a household adjusted to a meal of salads and grilled fish or grilled chicken. this sounds more feasible than doing that
Definitely.
at this point. Yeah?
Definitely. See, again, the Indian cuisine as such has everything necessary to help you with health and fitness. It's just that, you know, and I write about this in the book also, right? And if we have time, I'll share a little story.
Absolutely. Please go ahead.
The story is there in the book too, right? So there was a village back in the day. So it's just a fictional story, okay? So in this village there was a school, and the teachers there and the students there, and they were just about, you know, time for starting classes, and they're getting ready, and a cat shows up. A cat shows up and starts making noises, starts meowing over and over and over again. They try ignoring the cat, but it keeps doing that. So they're like, I mean, what the hell, man? We have to address the cat. So it looks like the cat was hungry. So they went and got some milk, and they came and fed the cat. The cat had the milk, was happy, cat shut up, class went on. Next day, coming back to school, going to start the class, cat is back again. Meowing because, you know, wants food. Slowly the cat made a habit of this, and, you know, the school also made a habit of it. Like every day before class starts, a cat will come, you feed the cat, and then the cat will be quiet, and then you continue with class. This went on for a few years, and then the school shut down, and, you know, 100 years passed, and then the village is still there. Now a new school is there. A new school, a new teacher has come, and new students are there, and parents are all, you know, gathered to see the first day of class. So class is starting, and the teacher is going to start, and one of the parents says, stop, you can't start class. Like, why? Like, you got to feed the cat. Like, what cat? Like, there's no cat here. Like, no, but it's tradition. We have to feed the cat. So they go find a cat, bring the cat, feed the cat, and then start class. Okay. So a lot of our traditions and rituals are like this. They were amazing solutions to problems that existed back then,
Which don't anymore.
Today we have the same solutions, but we don't have those problems. So when we eat a diet that is filled with carbs, we are solving a problem of our forefathers who did not live in a world filled with convenience.
Yeah, and abundance.
Abundance, yes.
Absolutely.
And so they had to do it that way, and it solved a great problem. Today, the problem is abundance, like you said. So we have to, what we really need to do is we have to reduce the amount of energy we're consuming while increasing the amount of nutrients we are consuming. So how do you do that? You reduce the amount of starch on your plate, which is rice, which is where the energy comes from. And you increase the amount of vegetables that you're consuming, because vegetables contain fiber and micronutrients.
Right.
It's the same food, different proportions. It's the same people, different times.
Absolutely.
So we have to keep up with the times and let this Indian cuisine evolve with us.
No.
That's the only way we are going to keep the Indian cuisine alive and relevant for the next generation. If the Indian cuisine always meant eating a ton of carbs and hardly any vegetables and protein, trust me, the kids, as they grow up, they're going to dump it.
Because it's not going to be relevant to them anymore.
And it's not going to help them.
Yeah.
So if we want to keep it a part of their lives, we have to evolve. And it's a simple evolution.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. It's just changing those proportions around.
Absolutely.
No, totally. So speaking of children, right, with parents becoming more health conscious, you have parents taking protein shakes and supplements, magnesium, this, that. And of late, I've seen children, 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds get on the protein shake bandwagon. What did you have for breakfast? I had a protein shake this morning. I've heard this from children. What are your thoughts around that, Raj? A couple of questions here, and I'm going to go with all of them at once. Are we overdoing it with the protein supplements? Is it really safe? Is it really healthy? Because in my mind as a mother, I'm constantly hearing processed food is bad. And I see protein shakes as a processed food item. So there's a lot of divide in our household about protein supplements. And because I am a meat eater as well. And what is a safe age for a child to start on a protein shake and supplements? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Protein shake, definitely a double-edged sword. So before we go to the protein shake, let's talk about processed food. When we're talking about processed food, there are various levels of processing, okay? And even cooking is processing, for example, okay?
Agree.
Yeah. So there's minimally processed, unprocessed, highly processed. Now, when people say processed food is bad for you, you have to remember that processing can lead to positive outcomes and negative outcomes. For instance, when you take a potato and you process it, you make it chips. Right? You cut it into tiny, tiny sizes, you increase the surface area, you dunk it in oil, you fry it, you add sugar and spice, you make it, almost irresistible, right? That is processing, which is going to make you do what? Eat more potatoes.
Right.
Eat more salt, eat more sugar, eat more oil. So, processed food, negative outcome. Okay. Now, think about the protein side of things. We are not getting enough protein. Unlike potatoes, where we're getting a lot of potatoes, right? We're not getting enough protein, and we are unable to fix that by introducing new food items into our cuisine, like paneer or soya or whatever.
How much paneer can
How much can you do? Because it doesn't fit into this, right? So a protein shake is essentially a processed version of something we're not getting enough of. To make it even more specific, how do you make a whey protein shake? Now, what is whey? Right? Like when you make curd from milk, the water that is left over on top, that's whey. Okay? But it contains like 1 gram or 2 grams of protein, very little. A protein powder box essentially has a lot of this water processed, flavored, and it's kind of made, tasty for you to have it, right? So the desired outcome of this processing is positive. You're not getting enough protein. So I will isolate protein, I will process it, I will make it tasty, I will make it affordable, and I'll give it to you so you can easily combine it with your meals. Make sense?
How much fat, and getting back to what you have taught me in the last hour or so, how much fat and how much carbs do those proteins?
I'm coming to that in a second, right? I mean, depends on the brand, but I'll come to that in a second, right? So my point is that firstly, with respect to processed foods, there are things that are useful and not useful. Now, coming to supplements. What are supplements? Supplements are things that we need when we are not getting enough of whatever it is from natural sources, right? Let's take vitamin D. Vitamin D is a very common supplement.
Correct.
Okay? Now, if you go to your doctor and your doctor says you have low vitamin D, your doctor can tell you, get sunlight. 1.5 hours every day at this time, go and do it. But you're not going to do it.
No, that's not a feasible.
It's not sustainable.
Absolutely.
So what happens? So he says, just take D-rice once a week and it'll be fine, right? That's a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good solution.
It's a good solution.
Right?
Agreed.
Because this day and age, you have many things to do. You can't stay in the sun, so you're going to do that. Assuming it's not dangerous. But the doctors ask you to take it. It has been prescribed. It has been regulated. And you have to have it once a week. But if you have it 5 times a week, then you're putting yourself in danger.
Correct.
Okay? Similarly with protein. I can tell you, you don't need protein shake. Please have more lentils, more paneer, more meat, more that. But you're like, it's not feasible. I'm not able to do it. Okay, great. So have a protein shake. Have 1 scoop a day. It'll give you 25 extra grams of protein. It's only food, nothing to worry about. But if you take 4 scoops a day, that's a problem, right? So the thing with supplements are, first thing, make sure you need them. If you're not able to get it from natural sources, then please go for a supplement. That is the point of supplements existing in this world, like the vitamin D.
Yeah.
But use it, don't abuse it.
I think an issue with supplements also is it's all self-prescribed these days.
Exactly, just coming to that, right? Now supplements are right in between medicines and food.
Right.
They slip through the cracks, okay? So a lot of times, these supplements, whatever it is that they claim they have, they don't have them.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, yeah. Anytime a test has been done, it's been proven that, there's not what was advertised. Like even trusted brands, like magnesium supplements, if you're having a magnesium supplement which has 300 milligrams, there have been so many brands which have 30.
Are you serious?
Like 1/10 of it.
Oh, wow.
Which is sad because as a consumer, you can't go and test it. You can. It's going to cost you 15,000 bucks.
I have no clue. I consider myself an educated end customer and I had no clue.
Yeah, but this is the problem with supplements in general, right? Now, 2 things to keep in mind with supplements. It's not as well regulated as medicines. Well, even well-regulated medicines are scary, you know that, right? So these are not as well regulated. Secondly, supplements make things so convenient and there is less awareness that people could overuse them.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the kids' question that you said, a 12-year-old having a protein shake for breakfast, right? Question is why? Okay? If the child is extremely active, playing sport, weightlifting, whatever it is, and they want the additional protein, they need the additional protein, that's awesome. But if they're having the protein shake for breakfast because it's convenient and tasty, that's no different from cornflakes.
Correct.
Right? Yes, it's different in that this is protein and that is sugar and carbs, but the thought process as to why you're doing it for convenience, not for health. That's the problem. Okay? Supplements make it very convenient for you. And when they become very convenient, for example, let's say I'm a vegetarian, let's suppose, right? And I can have as much protein powder as I want. What is stopping me from including 0 protein sources and just having dosa chutney whey, rasam sadam potato whey, tair sadam pickle whey?
Nothing.
right?
Yeah.
But that's not a healthy way to live,
No, that's not.
right?
Interestingly, for non-vegetarians, I've seen people taking psyllium husk and
Instead of the vegetable.
jackfruit flour instead of the vegetable.
Yeah. So that's the thing. See, a supplement is meant to supplement, right?
Yeah.
Like you have food, this is on top of that. It is supplementing, you're supplementing with more fiber or more protein or whatever. It cannot be your primary source of whatever. So if whey protein or protein powders become your primary source of protein, that is a problem.
Okay.
It should not be your primary source. It is meant to be a supplement, something you add on top, right? So if you're consuming 100 grams of protein a day and a 75 is coming from protein shakes, that's a problem. Right? That's basically assuming all the protein that we're having right now is ethically made and is no adulteration and stuff like that. But that's not the case either. So to your point, a good protein powder should contain about 85 to 90% efficiency with respect to protein.
Okay.
It is a good protein powder that is a good brand is very, very, very useful because it is extremely efficient and extremely bioavailable. Your body will absorb all of it.
Got it.
Okay? But you have to work with the right brands. If you're getting a brand and you don't know what is in there, it contains additives or there's amino acid spiking, so many different things or heavy metals, a whole bunch of them, then you're putting yourself at risk. So when it comes to supplements, please work with well-researched good brands and make sure the dosage is well under control. For kids, 1 scoop a day, which is about 1 scoop is a quarter cup, and that should typically contain anywhere from 20 to 25 grams of protein, is more than sufficient.
Okay.
And it should be used as a supplement, that is additional protein. The protein, vegetables, and starch in every meal, that's the foundation, right? Everything else you add on top of that.
Got it.
If you're using the protein, powder instead of the protein in your food, if that becomes your primary source, then we have a problem.
Got it.
Because going back to what we spoke about, you're not equipping the kid. What are you teaching the kid? Take the easy way out.
Yeah.
Have a supplement, right? And this will become protein bars, right? And then basically the child is just having protein bars for a snack and protein shakes for breakfast and dinner and considering themselves, eating really well.
So going back to our question on snacks, are protein bars good snacks? Like, what are your thoughts on
Protein bars, I'll
and
keep it very short. Protein bars are essentially candy bars with some protein added. That's all. That's it. There's nothing else to it. It's literally a candy bar with protein powder added to it.
Got it.
And from an efficiency standpoint, it's not efficient at all. To give you numbers, 1 scoop of protein powder will provide you with about 25 grams of protein and 120 calories. Okay, so basically 25 grams of protein is 100 calories. So 100 out of the 120 calories come from protein.
Got it.
A protein bar will provide you with about 200 to 250 calories and 10 grams of protein, which means only 40 of the 250 calories are from protein.
So it shouldn't really be called a protein bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bar.
Well, it's an energy bar.
It's an energy
But it's marketing gimmicks, right? Like, have you seen what is it the perk ad or is one of these ads like extra energy? What does extra energy mean? Extra calories.
Yeah.
You say extra calories, no one's going to buy it. You say extra energy, obviously people are going to buy it, right?
Mothers are the biggest influence on how kids eat. What are 3 mindset shifts do we need to make first as mums?
The first mindset shift would be to make it clear that it is not just mothers who are responsible for kids' nutrition. I think this is something that needs to happen. For whatever reason, we're in 2025, but still it's usually the moms who are expected to take care of kids' nutrition.
Right.
Or it is the moms who are blamed, when kids' nutrition is not up to snuff. Where are the dads? What are the dads doing? Right? And I think dads in general need to take a more active role in kids' nutrition, in kids' health, in kids' life in general, but especially as far as nutrition is concerned, as far as modeling behavior. Okay? And I don't think it is too much of an ask to ask dads to contribute towards kids' nutrition. Cook meals, eat with them, teach them things. Because in a lot of times, kids don't look up to just their moms. They look up to their dads, up to how they're eating also.
Right.
What they're drinking, right? What they're eating, how much they're eating, all of it. So I think from a parenting perspective, this has to be equally split between the mom and the dad. We need to stop thinking that it is the mom's role to make sure, a kid eats healthy. I think it is high time that we make that switch, especially considering how most of the fitness health influencers are male, and most of the chefs in the world are male, and most of the cooks in most restaurants are male. But somehow, inside the household,
It's the woman who's responsible.
how is that fair?
Agreed.
And why does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. And why are we not asking why? Right? Like, it should be easy to cook for kids also. Right? I mean, we're not talking about cooking for a family of 15. We're talking about cooking for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old, right? So I think the dad's taking more interest in playing a more central role in the kids' nutrition, food, behavior is a big part. I think that's the first mindset shift.
Okay.
We need to stop thinking it's on the moms. Moms should stop thinking that, hey, you know what, it's on me, right? No, it's on us. Like, we are doing this together. That's the first shift. The second shift is to remember that there is no good and bad as far as food is concerned. Right? Like, we have this mindset that certain things are good, certain things are bad. And this is where food guilt comes from.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the long term, when you think about when you feel guilty when you're eating quote unquote bad food. Yeah? When you eat cake, when you eat, I don't know, ice cream. It's so sad because ice cream and cake are amazing. It's supposed to make you feel happy. But then there's this whole food guilt cycle, right? And to remember, food guilt exists only when food pride exists. If you are proud of the fact that you ate spinach, you will be guilty of the fact that you ate ice cream. So food is just food. And this is why you need to think about food and outcomes and not just brand them or label them as good food and bad food. Right? And what this good food and bad food changes, drastically. And I'll give you a little example, a little story from my life. Many years ago, when I just got into this whole thing, I was doing a low-fat diet. Mm-hmm. Okay? So fat is bad. All right. So you can eat a lot of carbs, but fat is off. So I would, this was when I was in California. I used to go to this deli. I love this deli. I used to go there. I'm standing in line to get a sandwich. And as I'm standing in line, I'm looking at the board and I'm thinking, should I get that slice of cheese or not? Because cheese is fat. I'm in a low-fat diet, so fat is bad, cheese is bad. Should I get this slice of cheese? And I'm just tormenting myself as I walk, in that line. And when I get there to the to the counter, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
So I get the cheese. But guess what happens? As soon as I eat the sandwich, what do I feel? I feel fat, right? You feel like I've just gained, weight because I ate bad food. But here's the funny part. I think a month later, I was off the low-fat diet. I got on a low-carb diet, naturally, because you've missed fat all along. So in a low-carb diet, you can eat as much fat as you want, right? But you're going to have to reduce the amount of carbs. So that week, I'm in the same deli, I'm in the same line. I have no questions about cheese, but I'm thinking, should I have this with bread or not? So now bread is bad. It's the same sandwich, it's the same person, but the mindset makes me believe one food item was bad last week, another food item is bad this week. Right? And I think this whole mindset of thinking about food as good and bad is something that we should change. We have to connect food to outcomes. If a child says, hey, can I have some cake at, 6 o'clock? You're going to ask the child to not eat cake then.
Right.
Because cake is not a meal. You finish your meal, I'll give you a spoon of cake.
Yeah.
Why? Because cake is for taste. You want to have fun with it. Right? So I think figuring out how to include foods in a child's life is very important. And I think that comes from us.
Yeah.
Because given a choice, we don't want any of the bad stuff in our lives at all till 8 p.m. After 8 p.m., then we want to talk a different story, right?
Yeah.
In fact, the other day, me and my wife, we were watching some reels, and 2 reels, right? Like the first reel was of this competitive eater who was just eating a bunch of food, just complete glutton. And the next is, I think, a reel of Chris Hemsworth to someone who's like in great shape. And I was just telling her, what we really want is we want to eat like that guy and look like this guy,
one.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is just such a struggle in our heads, and we need to free our children from that. That's certainly a mindset change that's necessary. And the third one, I would say, is the whole thing around being skinny and slim and small, right? I don't think our goals as people is to just keep shrinking, just become smaller and smaller and smaller. At the same time, we should not be teaching our kids that big is bad, skinny is good, right? So it is important that we remember, we understand, we realize, and we teach that health and body size are 2 different things. Of course, there is a relation. If you are morbidly obese, if you're clinically obese, will it have health concerns? Of course. But that does not mean that the only way to health is to be extremely lean, is to look like celebrities, you see on screen, because they are not necessarily healthy. They're just looking good.
Yeah.
Right? So what is healthy, what is fit is something that we have to redefine in our child's minds.
What is healthy and what is fit according to you, Raj?
Well, to be very honest, there is no one answer for this, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, fitness is the ability to do the things that you need to and want to in your life. Okay? And we all play many roles in our lives, right? Like, sure, we're parents, but we're partners, we're kids, we're siblings, right? We are colleagues, we're peers, we are bosses, we're subordinates, we have so many roles to play. And the point is that some of these roles we need to play. We need energy to do that. And some of these roles we want to play. You want to dance, you want to play sport, you want to go hiking, you want to travel. Health and fitness is basically a state in which you are able to do these things that you want and you need without struggling. For instance, let's say I have a dog and I want to play with my dog, but I'm not able to play with my dog because I, run out of breath. I need to work on my fitness to be able to do that. Let's say I'm someone who really enjoys dancing, right? I used to dance when I was younger, right? Not me, I'm just saying, right? And now I'm not able to because my knees are hurting. Fix that. That is fitness, being able to do that. Right? Looking a certain way or being able to lift 300 kilos or doing, I don't know, whatever feat or running 100 kilometers or doing 100 snatches, that is not fitness. That is fitness for certain people. That's not fitness for everyone. Right? You take a tennis player. A fitness for them is about performance. If you've seen Rafa and if you've seen Federer, they're both champions. Federer is not someone who has a six-pack. He's not the ripped guy, but he is the GOAT, right? I mean, he's the best there is. Because for him, peak fitness was about function. His function was to be able to perform at a top level, maintain that accuracy in a 5-hour game, right? That is fitness for him. For me, that's not fitness. I don't have to do those things. I want to be able to do the things that I need to do in my life. Okay? For instance, for a common person, I have a long day at work, let's suppose, right? I start my day in the morning. I have a long day, work stress, travel, eating, all that. I come home at 7:30 at night. And let's say I just don't have patience for my kids and my, partner or my family members. I'm just frustrated. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Well, work on that. You want to be able to come back home still having energy to be patient, to enjoy time with your wife. That is fitness. That is what is going to improve the quality of your life. Not looking like Alcaraz.
Right. What is it going to do to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the end result, right? What is the desired result? And fitness, we talk a lot about how we look.
Yeah.
And the moment I say fit, immediately the image in your mind is about who looks fit. Yeah. But in reality, fitness is about look, feel, and function. You want to look better, feel better, function better. And better is a key word here. Because there is no, becoming fit. It's only becoming fitter, fitter than you. There is no becoming strong. There's only becoming stronger. And when I talk about look, feel, and function, we have to remember, we all want to look good, of course. If not, why do we own mirrors? Why do we comb our hair? Why do we get new, clothes, right? But more importantly, how do you feel in a day? If you're someone who's constantly agitated, right? You have headaches very commonly. You have acidity problems. You're in pain. Your joints ache. You're not feeling good. You want to feel good. Looking great and feeling miserable is not fitness. And the next question, how do you function? You have 24 hours just like I have 24 hours. How are you functioning in these 24 hours? Are you just surviving day after day? You're like, oh my God, I can't wait for this day to end. Or are you getting to bed happy and waiting to, wake up the next day? Right? Driven, feeling good, doing things. So it finally comes down to look, feel, and function.
Got it. And that's a mindset we need to change in ourselves and feed to our children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like you beautifully said, right, feed to our children, that part doesn't take too much work as long as we believe in this and we model this behavior. A lot of times we are confused, right? And our inner demons, the trauma that we go through, they are, evident to our kids. And when they go through these things, it feels normal.
Yeah.
Because, my parents went through the same thing. How can we break the chain? Right? How can we not keep passing baggage, from one generation to the other? That's the question.
Absolutely. I think that was a great answer. So we're coming close to the end of the session. So before we go on a lighter note, I'm going to list out a few myths and you're here to tell me if they're actually true or that's something that you'd want to break.
Okay.
Yeah. This one's very simple. The first one, kids don't need protein. They'll grow anyway. That's what they do.
That's definitely not true.
No. After this conversation, I know that's not true. Milk is the best and only source of calcium.
Not true at all.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Well, I mean, see, milk is a good source of calcium, but dairy is a good source of calcium. You have yogurt, you have cheese, you have all those. But there are a lot of food items also that have a lot of calcium. Green leafy vegetables. Right? So just basically making sure you're consuming enough vegetables, protein, and milk and cheese and dairy being a part of protein will take care of it. It's very, very, very rare for someone to have a calcium deficiency.
Got it. Fat is bad. Avoid ghee, nuts, and oils if you're trying to.
Not even true. I'll need another hour if we have to talk about that. But I mean, fat is one of the 3 macronutrients, right?
Okay.
You have carbs, you have protein, you have fat. You need all 3 macronutrients. Obviously, you don't want too much of any of these things. You want to be able to balance them out. But that does not mean that you're going to have to stay away from all fat sources.
Got it.
Fats are dense in calories. So if you're trying to lose weight, you want to make sure you're consuming fat reasonably. But there's absolutely no reason to stay away from nuts and ghee and things like that, especially for kids who are active, who need the energy and who are growing.
Fruit juices are healthy.
No. I mean, fruit juice is basically liquid sugar.
Yeah.
Right? So, and a simple way to think about it is, let's say you're having an apple juice, okay? Say 250, 300 ml of an apple juice. It takes about 7 apples to come up with that juice. You can have a cup of apple juice right after a meal. When was the last time you had 7 apples after a meal?
Probably never.
Never, right? I mean, no one does.
Yeah.
The thing is, as long as you eat your food, right, you're chewing, there's a lot of fiber in it, right? Nature has basically added protective, mechanisms there. But when you process it, and juicing is processing.
Oh, okay.
You're essentially pulling all this. What is fruit, right? Fruit has fiber, a little bit. It has water, it has sugar, and it has some micronutrients.
Yeah.
Juice is essentially sugar and water.
So you're just pulling the...
Because you're taking the pulp out, you're taking all of it, right? You're just pulling out the taste, just the happy parts of it, and you're drinking it. And needless to say, fruit today itself is just a very, very, very sweetened version of what fruits used to taste like before. Apples were never like this. Apples were small and tart.
Yeah.
Today you go to Paramudir and apples are like shoes. They all look exactly the same, polished and beautiful, right? So we've bred fruits to make them sweet already. So every fruit is sweet today because we like it that way and we've selectively bred them. Now, you go one step further and you juice them. That's essentially like, pulling only the tasty, fun stuff out of it. So it's nothing about health.
Got it. Chubby kids are healthy kids. You need to eat more.
I don't know. I mean, it's a mindset from a time of scarcity.
Right.
Okay? See, there was a time when it was really a problem. Right? When food scarcity was there and malnourishment was there, and when a child was not chubby, it was concerning because they could get infections very quickly. Their immunity was very low. This was a concern 100 years ago. Today, again, though, we live in an age of abundance. So, doesn't relate at all.
No relation. So, eating too much meat too frequently can heat your system up somehow. Have you heard of that?
Yes. And there is partially some truth to it, right? Because protein in general does have a high thermic effect than everything else. Thermic effect is essentially when you eat a food, your body has to digest it. So when your body is breaking down a food, it generates heat, right? It's exothermic. So protein in general is highly satiating and the thermic effect is high. So when you consume a lot of protein, your body temperature does go up. And there are people who are susceptible to this and people who are completely immune to this. In fact, way back when I started working with people, I had this one student of mine, this was way before the quad even. When he was on a 150 gram protein diet, his body would heat up so much that he would have to go and sit in a bathtub and he can see fumes come out of it.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of crazy.
It is.
Yeah. But again, it's not something that's common, but it could also be because this person I'm talking about was probably consuming 20-30 grams of protein till then, and then switched to 150 grams of protein overnight.
Yeah.
So the body was struggling to break down all of that, and breaking down all of that is work for the body, and heat is generated. But this has nothing to do with you have a little extra meat and then your body just heats up.
Yep. That doesn't happen. Once they're older, they learn to eat better.
No, only if we teach them. I mean, you can apply the same logic, right? Like, don't go to school. You'll just figure it out, once you're older, right? I mean, don't learn how to sleep. You'll learn how to sleep later. Don't learn anything, and then they learn how. So food is, as confusing as it is now, learning to eat the right kind of food is a skill. And the sooner we teach them that, and the more we kind of veer towards concepts as opposed to rules, they find it a lot easier to learn these things as they grow.
healthy food has to be bland?
Not at all. I think spice is a great thing. It's not that it's necessary. And when I say spice, I don't mean the spice. I don't mean the hot spice.
Yeah.
Right?
You mean the
Different kinds of
cardamom and
the
the
different kinds of
cloves
spices that
and
you're
all of
adding. So bland or not is a person's choice as to how they want to eat. Some kids eat a lot of spice. My son, for example, does no spice. But we're in no rush. I mean, like I said, taste buds evolve with time and then they'll figure it out.
Thank you so much, Raj, for your time. I think this was an eye-opening conversation
you.
for me, both as a mother and somebody who's followed your journey for quite a bit. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I had a lovely time talking to you too.
Thank you very much. So if you did like this video, please share this with somebody you think this might be useful to, and do subscribe for more such content. Thank you.